Awesome to see everybody. Really excited to be here, and exciting time of year. As we've talked about, everywhere around the country right now, people are getting ready to play, and it's been a long and really positive preseason so far. We've been very pleased with our training camp. Dealt with a few, normal nagging injuries that I think probably a lot of teams in the country are dealing with this time of year. We've been practicing basically since June when the guys arrived on campus. We took a break at the end of the summer, came back in preseason in September, and then September 25th started with official preseason training camp. And so now we're basically a few days away from getting a chance to see where we are versus another opponent, and obviously less than 3 weeks away from our home opener. So outside of that, been very pleased with this group so far over the last 4 to 6 weeks. And again, just dealing with normal stuff that comes this time of year in terms of a few guys being banged up, and that we'll see how our rotation plays out in other situations that I know you guys will ask about. So outside of that, just love this group of guys a bunch, love this group of coaches, and just excited for this time of year.
Questions? Year one was great, and you have a lot of returning pieces. So what's the main message going into year two here at East Carolina?
Just that last year we spent so much time talking about it wasn't as much of what we did, but how we did it, whether that was on or off the court. And I think one of the great things about having 8 returning players, forget the basketball piece, is just an understanding of how we want to do things. So you can focus more on what we're doing and the execution pieces of those, or what do the details look like off the court, what do they look like on the court, specifically offense, defense, etc. But even with that being said, you never ever stop with the emphasis, or the premium is always on how we do things. But it definitely helps going into year 2 when you got 8 guys, and particularly some real leaders, some strong personalities, like I know we'll talk about Brandon Johnson, R.J. Felton, Ezra Osar, Jaden Walker. That how we do things has been much better and much smoother starting this summer.
So I ask you about all those returners, Coach. In 2023, and the way basketball is today, do you feel blessed to have all those guys back, and you're going to have an experienced team on the court compared to some others you face?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely feel very fortunate, and we're not going to ever take that for granted. But when we were fortunate enough to become, coach this program, and I had an opportunity to become the head coach here, the first thing that we said was we really want to build a program that consists of continuity, sustainable success, where we hopefully have guys here 2, 3, 4 years. Guys are excited to graduate from ECU, and that vision's not going to change. Also alluded to it last year, saying, hey, if we have to make an adjustment, we will. We'll make those adjustments as we go along and as we navigate this, and we will continue to make those adjustments. But from a standpoint of 8 guys returning and not having one senior on this team, the potential of having this team together for 2 more years that looks very similar to this, I feel very fortunate, excited about that. And last year, I think at one point in terms of Division I production, we were somewhere around 350 in the nation in terms of what was coming from the previous year, what was returning. Production, not necessarily age or class. This year, I think will be much higher from a production standpoint, but we still have multiple years of eligibility remaining on this team, and that is exciting.
Coach, for you specifically, last year as a first-time head coach, what are some tangible things you learned on the fly that you can apply to this year, going into year 2, where I'm sure you have a much better feel for kind of how to handle things, what to expect?
Yeah, I think early rotation is a big thing. I often think back to us early in the season last year as we were defining our rotation, and we played a lot of guys. And we remember a lot of games we were playing 12 guys, 13 guys. A lot of that had to do with probably first-time head coach and trying to find my way, and a lot had to do with us as a team trying to find out, okay, who can execute what we're trying to do. We didn't have anybody that just stood out and we knew we were either playing through or had full grasp of our system, and it actually fluctuated throughout the year. You hope that's actually a benefit coming back to this year, because of the 8 returners, 7 of them have started games. A lot of people like to say we have 4 or 5 returning starters. We have 7 of the 8 started games, including Caleb LeCount and Ben Biella. They all started games last year. So that is something that I think will be a little bit, I look at that as we're going to be a little sharper early in the year. But by the same token, one thing about these inter-squad scrimmages that we've been able to do, I always say this, it's great because everybody plays. You have 10 guys on the court. Whenever we had refs come in and we play a purple gold and we had the one open one, then we had another one. But as a coach, what also is not great is that everybody plays. Because when we go play on Sunday and we have a close scrimmage, it's not going to be 10 guys on the court. It's going to be 5 at a time. So we're still 2 weeks away from really knowing what our early season rotation will be, pending what happens over the next 2 weeks.
Coach, just heading into year 2 overall, how much more comfortable are you and your staff knowing the conference and knowing what it takes to win at ECU?
I think the confidence comes from the consistency, the continuity of our players and our coaching staff. Outside of losing one coach, Nick Mattson, who was a great coach and he was so important to us last year, and he went on to the University of Texas, and now we have Coach Mark Adams here, is someone that we're so excited to have. So from a continuity standpoint, we're the same coaching staff, and I've said this, one of the exciting things about ECU basketball right now is continuity, is our players, our student-athlete continuity, our coaching staff continuity, our administration continuity in pouring into this program. And we feel very fortunate about that from John Gilbert and Chancellor Rogers and Caroline Bevillard and J.J. McLam and Ryan Robinson all pouring into our program. It's something that's really important to us. So the consistency piece definitely helps with confidence because we all know what to expect from each other, and we all went through it for a year. We have a very long way to go, but from that standpoint, I think that confidence stems from the continuity.
The addition of Coach Adams, you're a defensive guy, he's a defensive guy, so what are some of the things he brings that are different from you or that complement kind of what you've already tried to instill?
Well, we know when we get to practice and there's never one basket scored, we're both happy at the end of practice. So, no, you know, it's just, again, you talk about mentality, and he challenges us in a way of, hey, this is how he has seen things done and been very successful doing things. From a mindset standpoint, fits right into what we want this program to be about, which is defense. Nothing's going to ever change, no matter how fortunate we are if we do score the ball well, if we are a solid offensive team, which obviously we hope to be. We feel confident that we can be, no matter who is a student-athlete here, whether it's recruiting or eventual student-athlete here. Defense is still going to be the pillar, going to be the foundation of our program, and he thinks like that. So the fact that we're all on that page, it was a seamless transition with Nick moving on and Coach Adams coming in, that our mindset of our coaching staff remained the same.
Hey, Coach, you saw over the summer the conference saw a lot of realignment and changing. Do you think with the 3 teams that left, but the couple good teams that joined, do you think that it moves up an opportunity for ECU to maybe have a better conference record this year?
You know, I think that's a real loaded question. Obviously, we want a better conference record regardless of who came into the conference or who left. So that's because we want to progress and we want to move up. From a standpoint of the couple good teams, there's 6 good teams that came into this league. And there's 3 teams that were very, very strong last year. 3 teams on the final weekend of college basketball last year were playing in terms of FAU in the Final Four, North Texas, and UAB in the NIT Finals in Las Vegas. And if you go back a couple days, Charlotte won a championship. So 4 of the 6 teams that joined our conference were playing in the final 5 days of college basketball last year. So I would actually say that this conference got stronger basketball-wise. Houston, obviously the team that was the standard setter in this league, has gone on to the Big 12 and has picked second in the Big 12, and they were majority number 1 team in the country last year in our conference. So when you look at those 4 teams and the success they had, and you talk about UTSA and Rice as well, this conference took a step up, so it's going to be equally as hard, if not more challenging, but our own expectation is rising because we're in year 2, and we feel our program's getting stronger as well.
Can you touch on that a little bit? You added some pieces from some major schools, and again this year, particularly the Durham guy, Hedeford. Tell us a little bit about him and getting a point guard in like that.
Yeah, you know, very excited about the 3 freshmen that joined. and the two transfers, one Cam Hayes, who came from LSU but is originally from Greensboro, spent a year at NC State, and then Bobby Pettiford Jr., who was at Kansas. He is from Durham area, as you said. He's won a national championship, and he's played a great role on an incredible Kansas team that had a 2-year run while he was there. His freshman year as a national champion. He has NCAA experience back-to-back years and coached by a great coaching staff and Coach Self and his coaching staff. So very excited about both those guys. Bobby brings a sense of true leadership. He is a true point guard. He understands the position. Nothing to do with putting the ball in the basket, nothing to do with statistics. He understands what it is to be a point guard, and that's really important, and that's going to only help us with him, Jaden Walker, Caleb LeCount, and all of them playing point guard duties, as well as Cam Hayes. Obviously, we know, and we don't know Cam Hayes' situation right now. We'll see what happens. We have no knowledge of that, and Bobby Pettiford is one of the players that's been a little banged up this preseason, so he has not been on the court quite as much to get in that rhythm, but he's getting there. He's doing great in all his strengthening and rehab, and we can't wait to have him on the court full time.
Coach, the team picked to finish 5th in the preseason poll. Is that something you take a slight to? Do you think that's about accurate? How would you say that stacks up with how you view the team in the conference?
I really put nothing into that, whether we were picked 14th, 5th, 1st, 2nd, somewhere in between. It's like Kim McNeil and Hurst team. Where we are in October, it really is irrelevant to where we want to be come March. So that's the honest truth. Now, here's what the thought process is. Picked 5th, higher than this team's been picked, this program's been picked in the AAC, to this point. A positive for our program for the same reasons that we spoke about. The consistency of our players returning, the continuity, the retention, the consistency of the coaching staff, and the incredible and very fortunate, the pour-in by our administration into this basketball program. Those are positives that we're going to build on. But the reality is, every single team, 1 through 14, is chasing to be number 1 in March. And so where we're at now is just a sign that, hey, we're building positive momentum, and we'll take that. But that was forgotten that Tuesday that we got back and we started practice.
You have arguably one of the best front courts in the American this year in Ezra and Brandon Johnson. And how do you see the two freshman bigs coming in and how they help them grow, and how can you see their role help this team this year?
Well, we really do need those two freshmen to bring, something to the front court. And I would say this, we're very excited about the way Brandon and Ezra have practiced this summer and this fall. Brandon has added so much to his game. Ezra, as we all know, dealt with shoulder surgery this summer, so he spent a lot of it the first 5 weeks of summer. Then he got on the court the final 3, and he's at a really nice preseason training camp. Though they will continue to improve and expand their games. Brandon continuing on the perimeter, but has to rebound the way he did. Ezra continuing to expand his game as someone that can stretch the defense and keep the defense honest as a shooter, and he's worked really hard at that, and I think we'll see that. A player that people haven't talked about as much is Valentino Pinedo. Valentino has had a really good summer. Val wasn't with us last summer because he was with the U18 Spain national team playing. So this was his first summer, a true off-season. He arrived on campus basically mid-August last year and figured it out in those 6 weeks prior to the season starting. Val had a really good summer. He is going to be someone that we count on in the front court, and we do need one of those freshmen to step up and be that 4th guy. They bring something totally different. They're both 7 feet and in guys. They have a little bit of difference what they bring to the table, but they're both 235 or bigger. They're strong. They could potentially give us what we really need, is what we lost with Luigi DeBow, who Luigi was playing his best basketball at the end of last year, and in turn I think that was a big reason we were playing our best basketball at the end of last year. So we need one of those two freshmen to really step up and give us that physical presence.
Kind of mentioned it there with Pinedo, but we were surprised to see Brandon Johnson shooting threes game 1 last year. It showed how much he worked during the offseason. Anybody specifically taking a leap where even you're like, okay, this looks like a different player? He's added a lot from last season.
Yeah, I think we sat right here, and it was in this moment that we said, Brandon Johnson had 3 threes his first year at ECU. And I said, We guarantee you'll see that this year and a lot more. And Brandon hit 3 in that very first game versus Mercer, and then obviously ended up being one of our leading three-point shooters. And he has continued to work just as tirelessly, put just as much time and effort into becoming better and expanding his game. So we'll continue to see that. I think Brandon, as good as he was at the end of last year, he's a different player right now in a very positive way. So I'm excited about that. Valentino is somebody that fits in that conversation because of what he did. He's so much more comfortable on offense, keeping our offense moving side to side and making plays out of our offense. Not necessarily just scoring, but just the understanding and the confidence to do that. I think Caleb is playing right now like a real point guard, Caleb LeCount, and that's going to be strong. He's playing like the pit bull we need him to be. We talk. It's one thing to say it as a freshman. He did it in certain games, but he's playing 94 feet of defense right now, and really proud of what he's doing. And I know there's other guys. RJ's had a great summer. Jaden Walker had a really good summer, but I think all our guys put a lot of time in the gym. Quentin DeBunje and Ben Biella are shooting the ball as good as they've shot it since they've been, at ECU this summer, this preseason. They're really shooting it well. We track it every day in practice. So it's excited about this group. Just got to see this. Got to see how we come together. And you love what you see every day in practice from these guys, but until you have 11 guys sitting on the bench and 5 guys in the game and how that rotation happens, you don't really know truly what it looks like. And we'll get a feel this weekend.
Time for one more.
Coach, just wanted to ask about the non-conference, able to get South Carolina in here, schedule a couple other big schools. What was the thought process in putting that together, and how excited are you for some of those matchups?
Very excited. When we got here last year, we said we want to try and create a really powerful schedule, and build that strength of schedule as the years go, as the seasons go, and that includes having great home games. We are so fortunate to have 20 home games this year. I've been in this a long time, 25 years I think it is now, and never been a part of a program everywhere I've been that's been able to have 20 home games. And to be able to do that, just so thankful to the administration with our MTE, with Kennesaw State, Northeastern, and Georgia Southern coming in. But South Carolina is a running series. We obviously played them on a neutral site last year. They'll be in our building this year. We go to Columbia next year. George Mason, we're going to George Mason. George Mason will be in our building next year. Wilmington will be here this year. They'll be here next year. And I said this last year, we don't have to schedule year to year at ECU. We're going to put series together. We're going to put neutral games. We're going to have a running, because that builds excitement year to year. And we have everything it takes to do that here. And we've started to do that. We have a long way to go from a standpoint of the strength of schedule, of Florida in a neutral site in Lakeland, South Carolina coming here, Wilmington, Mason. The MTE is to prepare for one of the toughest conferences in the country once we get to American play on January 2nd versus Florida Atlantic. So that's what we want to have, a very tough non-conference schedule that prepares us for what we know is a grueling American conference.
Anything else, Coach?
A couple things. Personnel-wise, our players will be available. To Corey Faison right now is not with the team. He has just stepped away for personal reasons.